Hey, everybody. Welcome to our stream today. My name is Rey Cuevas, and I am a recruiter at Gnomon. I have been with Gnomon for just over 4 years now. And as a recruiter, I am basically meeting students who are interested in coming to the school, sharing resources with them, and connecting them to the admissions department. I'm also an artist. And so today we're going to be talking about portfolios, which is something that we get a lot of questions about. And so to help me with that today, we have Hannah Webb, our Director of Admissions. Welcome to the stream, Hannah. Absolutely. So just kind of to get started, can you tell us kind of what exactly do you do at Gnomon?
Yeah, so I am Gnomon's Director of Admissions. So my role at the school is to sort of coordinate the admissions department. We are the people that work with students that are trying to either enroll in classes at Gnomon or apply for full-time programs. So it's my role and my department's role to talk to individuals about their goals and their backgrounds and help them figure out what is going to be the best path for them as they move forward in their education and then eventually in their career.
That's awesome. And so how long have you been doing that at Gnomon?
I have been at Gnomon 5.5 years.
Awesome. And so to everybody that's just joining us, again, I would like to welcome you all. My name is Rey Cuevas, and this is Hannah Webb. And we are here today to talk about portfolios, which, again, is something that we get a lot of questions about. So throughout today's stream, if you yourself have questions, we will be answering those. So please post them in the chat. And we'll get to them at some point during the conversation today. Our goal today is, again, to kind of just dispel as many myths about the admissions process from Gnomon, and talk about different strategies of putting that portfolio together. So just to kind of get started, let's talk about what are the portfolio requirements that Gnomon has for somebody interested in joining or applying for our bachelor's degree or 2-year certificate.
Sure. So I think the first thing that's important to mention here is that there are ways to attend Gnomon without a portfolio. We have a portfolio development course. We also have individual classes that you can sign up for. And these things don't require that you submit a full portfolio. So when we're talking about how to make a portfolio, we're really just talking about our 2-year certificate and our 3 or 4-year bachelor's degree program. So broadly speaking, a portfolio is just some examples of the type of artwork that you produce. We ask to see between 15 and 20 examples of just the artwork that you make, sort of that gives us an idea of your skill set and your creativity and, sort of some evidence that art and creating art is part of your life and something that you are actively pursuing.
Gotcha. And so you mentioned 15 to 20 pieces. That's why 15 to 20 basically?
Sure. Well, because we don't want you to show us 2 and we don't want you to show us 100. So 15 to 20 is usually enough artwork that we can get a good feel for your consistency overall. It's having produced 1 or 2 pieces of artwork in your life is a great place to start, but we need to know that you've spent a little bit more time, working on stuff, making stuff. The reason why we don't want 100 is because we want you to curate your submission. We want you only to show us your best 15 to 20. So the portfolio is less about here's everything I've ever made, and more, here are 15 to 20 examples that I think, will show you what it is that I am best at. So it's about just kind of your highlight reel.
Right. And I mean, it's always right. People hear this all the time. It's the whole quality over quantity principle, which I think it's important across the board, regardless if it's a portfolio for applying to Gnomon or a portfolio for applying to a job or, whatever way you're showcasing your artwork. You should always just showcase whatever is best and curate down to that number.
Right.
Now, what about people that maybe don't have that many pieces? You mentioned that there are ways to attend Gnomon without necessarily having a portfolio.
Sure.
So let's talk about those.
Yeah, so we have the Foundation in Art and Design is a portfolio development course. So if you are in a position where you maybe just don't have any artwork. There's two different things here. There's, is my artwork good enough? And then there's, I don't have any artwork. If you're in the I don't have any artwork, I'm maybe a very, very beginner. Foundation is usually a good path for you because, you know, it allows you to take a couple classes and start building up a skill set in a way that that doesn't require that you are already proficient. You know, you don't have to already be good in order to join portfolio development. So foundation's a good way to do that. What we find a lot of the time, though, is that what students are challenged with is determining whether or not the artwork that they make is good enough. You know.
Sure.
So that, you know, whether or not you require portfolio development really just depends on the artwork that you make. It's really hard to self-assess. You know, students are usually don't have a lot of ideas of who they can ask about whether their work is good enough or far enough along, or, you know, or if they're on the right track or whatever. So, you know, so it's a good idea to talk to an admissions advisor like myself or the rest of the admissions team, and we can tell you what is going to be the best path for you. But if it turns out that you do maybe need a couple of classes to help get off the ground, that's something that Gnomon does have.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we can kind of talk about that a little bit later. But we already have actually some questions coming in from chat. So thank you, chat. Keep it coming. You know, we'll kind of get to these as they become relevant in the conversation. But I'm not going to read usernames because I will butcher them for sure. So in chat, we have somebody saying that their roommate did 12 pieces and got into the BFA program. So is that fine, or should I still aim for 15 to 20? That's a really good question.
That is a really good question. So this is the bending the rules question. If you have 15 to 20 is a range. You know, it's just to give you an idea generally of how much work we want you to have and how much we want you to show us. Some students do show a little bit less, fewer pieces, but if they do, it's usually because they are way more complex. So, for example, if a student is submitting 3D work in a portfolio, which is not required, but if they did, and let's say they drew the concept and they modeled the character and they textured it and then they animated it in an environment, even though they would probably only show us one piece of the finished thing, because there are so many steps and so many different little ways you can break down that piece, that we would kind of consider it one. So there is a little bit of flexibility in that, you know, but generally it just, the idea is that it has to feel like a complete amount of work. It has to feel like a, you know, like a bulky enough submission. So yeah, so if you show us a little more, that's okay. If you show us fewer, it's probably because you have them more further refined or rendered. But that again kind of comes down to this, you know, what qualifies. Our advice is usually not to aim for the minimum. So even if you could get away with submitting 12, it doesn't mean that you should, you know, make 12 pieces of art and go, done, you know, I'm out of here. You really should try to make as many pieces of art as you can so that you can choose your 15 to 20 pieces that are the best. So, you know, so aim for as many as possible, and then you get to pick your favorites out of a bigger pile. That's usually better.
Absolutely. And I think I didn't mention this when I introduced myself, but I used to be an admissions advisor when I started at Gnomon, and I was for the better part of 3 years. And so, yeah, I remember that a lot when talking to students. Some students would submit projects that were very, very detailed with multiple, you know, showing multiple skills. And I think that was really the what defined for me a project that could be used to show, you know, or to count as multiple pieces, is that it's showing not just the one skill, but multiple skills. And I would usually advise the student to, like, cool, you're showing me a full project. Now pull apart if it's an environment, like, and you have a hero asset in there, right? So no, not just an environment modeling, but like something that is very complex within that environment, pull that aside as well. And now, you know, then you have, you know, two pieces that you're showing, right? But it was one project. So stuff like that. But I think the important thing there, though, right, is that you should be talking to admissions, because the admissions advisor is really the person that's going to be able to tell you whether a project is, you know, big enough or encompasses enough skills to satisfy part of that 15 to 20 piece requirement or not. And they're also going to be able to advise you as to what you should do, or what pieces to include in that portfolio.
Right. Yep. Yeah. As a rule of thumb, though, in life in
Yeah.
general, in your future career, don't aim for the minimum. So
Yeah.
if you're trying to talk to admissions to try to figure out what is the least amount of work you can do to get
That says
through,
something, right?
it's probably not the best way to approach this. But we can tell you sort of whether you have a sufficient volume, or whether you need to produce more in order to get through the review. But just keep it in context.
Right.
The minimum should not be the goalposts.
Yeah. And talking about admissions, actually, I just wanted to mention that we have Sander Paxat on the chat under the Gnomon admissions account. He will also be answering questions. So if you have those and you see Gnomon admissions replying, that's Sander. That's an admissions advisor. He's awesome. So thank you for joining us, Sander. Thank you for the chat support. So now let's talk about ways of submitting, right? What are kind of the steps that a student should go through to get the portfolio to you guys?
Sure. So we accept portfolios a lot of different ways. For some students, they find it maybe easier or maybe more appropriate for their work to just put together, like a PDF or JPEG images or something. Some students that have motion work, again, not required, but if you have motion work, you could submit it in a video reel, which you could just send us a link to, or send it to us with Dropbox or Google Drive or something. You could host your work up on a website if you have a website. What we're looking for is a level of professionalism, and a level of care. So if you are going to send us a JPEG image, we would like you to make sure you're not like just taking a picture with your cell phone, like crop it in, make it a nice
Mm-hmm.
picture. So, we care a little bit more about presentation rather than how it's delivered to us. So,
Right.
whether your work is better suited to host online somewhere or just to send us directly, that's okay. When you're in the early stages of this, like let's say you want to just reach out and talk to admissions about just, generally, hey, where am I? Thinking about applying in a year. How am I doing? For that review, the presentation matters a whole lot less. So you don't need to feel like you need to make this beautiful presentation or build a website to have the conversation with admissions.
Mm-hmm.
But down the road, when you apply with your portfolio, you eventually will put together something that looks clean and thoughtful. But beyond that, we're super flexible. The one thing
Mm-hmm.
that we don't want is a hard copy portfolio. So we don't take your original artwork. We want you to digitally capture it and send it to us that way.
Yeah. So big tip there, guys. No hard copy portfolios, no originals. Everything should be either photographed or if it's a drawing and stuff like that should be submitted digitally to the school. So and actually, you mentioned something while you're talking there about not having a portfolio when you start talking to admissions, which is a really big thing. And actually, I think this would be a good moment to bring up our admissions process and put that up on screen. So you guys can see the way that we kind of structure the pathway for a student to talk to us in admissions. And the first step is speak to an admissions advisor. The last step, or next to last, actually, is step number 3. It's not next to last. Step number 3 is submit your portfolio. But again, first is just to speak to an admissions advisor, which if you tune into any of our talks, whether it's Art Jam, whether it's an event hosted by a recruiter, you'll hear us say this over and over, and that's just talk to admissions. So kind of what's the thinking behind that, behind having that as the first step?
Yeah, well, because like I said earlier, students are generally bad at self-assessing. So,
Right.
it's hard to just guess whether you're ready or not. And it's hard to guess whether, whether the bachelor's degree is a better fit for you, or maybe our certificate program, or whether you would be better off just taking a couple classes to start. All of these things just depend on the individual. So we recommend that students talk to us first so that we
Mhm.
can have the conversation about, okay, who are you specifically? What is it that you want to accomplish by attending school? What is your background? How prepared are you? How much time can you commit to this? Do you know what you're signing yourself up for, say, by pursuing a full-time program? So because every student's different, we usually just recommend that you start with a conversation, just speak to an admissions advisor so we can say, okay, cool, I think that you are in the right spot pursuing the BFA. The other reason why we tied this in here is because Gnomon really is a specialty school. Everything that we do is entertainment driven. We're all animation and games and post production, visual effects. So because we're a specialty school, that's another conversation that we feel we should have early on. Some students come to speak to us maybe more interested in say film, or things that we maybe touch on but don't dig into as deeply. So like editing and recording, shooting film, writing short films, like things that maybe are in our universe, but not as much of a major for us. So we just recommend that students talk to us early on so that we can go through, okay, here are your goals, here's what we do, here's your background, what is the best path to connect all of these things together.
Right. And yeah, again, being able to talk to admissions first for a student is going to be really helpful, because not only do you guys help them kind of identify the best path forward for them to navigate this process and for their education at Gnomon, but you also help them a lot with their portfolio. I remember as an admissions advisor, I used to help people like for months before they even submitted an application,
Oh yeah.
just to like, I would give them feedback. I would give them, advice on their work. I would connect them to resources. If somebody needed to practice perspective, here are 3 awesome YouTube channels that deal with perspective. Here are, if somebody wanted to start kind of getting into 3D and they've never touched 3D before, awesome. Here are a couple of free software that can
Oh
get
yeah.
you started. So I think that's something that makes our process really unique. It's basically how do how is it that advisors kind of work with students, to get them to start the application process, but how is it that we help them kind of get their portfolio together?
Sure. Yeah. Well, one of the things that I think makes Gnomon a little different is that our admissions team is super available and super full of resources. So we are all producing artists in the admissions department. Because of that, we can tell you very specifically, like, okay, here's exactly what I think you need. I think here's what really is going to help you specifically, and yeah, our role is coaching.
Mhm.
So, the job of an admissions advisor at Gnomon is to help you get into the school. We're not we're not a barrier, we're your support system. So, talking to admissions is really the best way to ultimately be admitted. And we are honest and we'll tell you exactly what needs to happen. So, like you mentioned, kind of working with students for long periods of time. If a student chooses to not talk to admissions, and let's say they're going to apply in 6 months, but they don't want to talk to us, maybe they just want to work independently. The reason why that can be a problem is because that student will spend 6 months working without really knowing what Gnomon's expectations are. So maybe they won't know that they should be spending more time working on this rather than working on that. So, talking to us really allows us to say, okay, here's what your perceived skill set is from the eyes of Gnomon. Here is the best use of your time for the next 6 months, the next 3 weeks, whatever the case may be, the next 2 years. And then we can say, all right, here's the plan. Why don't you try this, this, and this? You maybe want to explore 3D. Here's some resources. You maybe want to get better at observational drawing. Why don't you try this? And we can help you actually come up with a game plan so that when you apply, you have the materials. We can know that you have the materials that will help get you there. So our entire existence at Gnomon is based off of helping you get where you're trying to go. So basically it's a let us help you.
Yeah.
It's a free service. I mean, sending us an email with a link to your work and just saying, hey, I'm interested in games, what do you think, is really as much as it takes for us to be able to say, cool, here's where you are, here's some ideas of how to move forward, here's how we get started.
Yeah, and I think Sander in the chat is probably posting the contact card, or if he's not, he will. So you guys can get in contact with us. So if anybody's interested in getting in contact with admissions and starting that process, or just getting feedback on their work, like Hannah said, filling out that contact card is going to be the best way to do so. If you did RSVP through Eventbrite, then we will be reaching out to you just with a courtesy email, so you can reply to that also to start that process. But chat, just so you know, we are getting all of your questions. There are a ton of questions, so really proud of you, chat, coming in with all of these. So we will be getting to as many as we can. We just want to get some things out of the way in terms of general information that can actually probably hopefully answer some of these questions for you guys. As throughout the course of the conversation here. So cool. So now, with students kind of putting their portfolios together, as they prepare for application, there are a lot of what I think are kind of common misconceptions from students about the admissions process, or about what we expect them to have in a portfolio, things like that. So I want to kind of tackle some of those, and I noticed that some of the questions in chat actually are asking specifically about that. And the first one, I think, and it's really a big one, is, do I need to have 3D in my portfolio if I want to apply to Gnomon?
Right. Yeah. Well, that's a good question, and that's probably our number one most asked portfolio question at Gnomon.
Oh, I remember.
Which makes sense. And that, I mean, we are a 3D centric institution, so if you were to attend Gnomon, you would be studying 3D. And if you graduate from Gnomon, you would probably be pursuing a career in 3D. So, where you start with 3D is always the question. Do we require that you show 3D in an application portfolio? No, you do not need to submit examples of 3D in your application portfolio, but you are applying to a 3D school. So it is important that you, as a person, as an artist, as an individual, it's important that you have determined, hopefully through some level of experience, that 3D is what you really want to do. There are a lot of ways to do that. We recommend that students, for example, either explore some free 3D software online. You don't have to submit it in your portfolio, so you don't have to finish something, but it's a good idea to test it out just before you kind of commit your life to 3D, to make sure that you like it enough to really go for it. So, there's a lot of ways that you can show that you are interested in 3D and interested in entertainment with your portfolio. One example for students that like to draw, for example, would be like drawing a character in turnaround. So rather than just making a single illustration of a finished character, maybe you try to draw it from the side, from 3/4, from the front. What you're doing is you're thinking about how things might exist in 3D space. So you are trying to extend your drawing skills to sort of thinking about construction, and thinking about how things connect, things move, things might exist. So you do not need to have 3D software experience, but it is generally a good idea, if you're applying to a 3D school, to test the waters independently, and just make sure that you like it.
Yeah.
But our expectation is that students could submit a portfolio that is entirely 2D. That's okay. On the other hand, students that are maybe not very good at drawing could submit a portfolio that's entirely 3D. That's also okay.
Yeah. That's true, and I remember seeing kind of all kinds of portfolios.
Mm-hmm.
I saw students that had kind of come from a concept background, or just a more traditional art, and had like still life pieces and stuff like that. but they still went in and tried Blender or tried ZBrush and did a model, and it wasn't very good. It usually isn't for students that are starting. We understand that we're not trying, we will teach you 3D at Gnomon, right? So you're coming without any 3D experience, just showing the inclination to try it, just showing that you're open to it, that maybe you've given it a go. To us means a lot. It means that you're somebody who goes for it, which speaks to your character, and I think that's really important.
Mhm.
It's part of the
Yeah, I
process.
mean, like, my favorite analogy on this is like, let's say that you're going to apply to culinary school, and maybe want to be a pastry chef, but you have never tried to make a pastry. You make a lot of stir fry, but you've never made a pastry, but you want to go to pastry school. Even, what the people that would be accepting you to that school are going to ask is maybe not, well, you already need to be good at it, but are you sure that this is what you want to do? Like, have
Mhm.
you personally tried it, or thought about it, or is there any indication that this is something that you are certain about? That's a little bit more what we're looking for. Is we're looking for evidence that you care about learning this, and that Gnomon's going to be the right fit for you. We really don't have a 2D program at Gnomon. So we have 2D classes, we have portfolio development. It is part of our curriculum, but you would be graduating as a 3D artist. So, some evidence that you are interested in it is something that will help you.
Yeah, it goes a long way for sure.
Mhm.
Um, we have a question here from chat, which is kind of another kind of, I would characterize it as a misconception, but Tsukiyomi is asking, does Gnomon prefer digital artwork over traditional, or a mix of both? So do we have a preference?
Nope.
We do not.
No. So we care a little bit more about content than media. So if you would rather draw a character with pencil and marker, that's fine. If you would rather use Procreate or Photoshop, that's fine. We're going to be more interested in the result, in the final piece, and so it doesn't really matter. I would just say, work in whatever medium is most comfortable for you, but
Mhm.
but digital, it will be part of your life. So again, I would say don't shy away from working digitally, although again, we don't require that you show us with your application.
Yeah, and another one here that let's see, Andres Martinez is asking is portfolio content in portfolio content, is it better to have professional work or original IP development? And I think to kind of bring that back, or kind of a broader question there, is how do we feel about fan art in a portfolio?
Yeah. So, context for your work in general is important, So we like to see creative ideas. We like to see examples that kind of help us understand who you are, and sort of what you like and what you make. So I would say that, some original ideas and original concepts is going to help you. Just it's a little bit more representative of your creativity. In terms of like professional work versus class work versus personal work. You could submit any of that in a portfolio as long as it's work that you have made. So some students will show us examples from classes they've taken previously, high school art classes, college art classes, whatever. Some students will show us projects that they maybe did as commission projects for someone, or maybe things that they did for a client, or contract work or something. You could show that. A lot of our applicants have absolutely no experience with professional work. That's
Mhm.
okay too. So, yeah, so context, kind of whatever. If you are trying to figure out whether you should draw Spider-Man or whether you should invent your own character, I would say inventing your own character is going to be more useful for us. It will be able to understand more about you by what you make independently.
Yeah. Now, that said, I think that leads into a really important conversation about 3D, right?
Mhm.
So, a lot of 3D artists work off of people's concepts. And that's, I see a couple of questions in the chat about that. So, I think it's important to make that distinction. So, how do we feel about people in 3D working off of concepts from somebody else?
Yeah, that's okay as long as you credit it. So, what you're doing is if you are working in 3D from an existing concept, hopefully that concept is 2D, right? So you're translating a 2D image into a 3D model. That is still showing us your ability to translate something into a new medium, right? You're reinterpreting it into software. So as long as you credit your source, it's totally fine to model things that are based off of someone else's concept. You just have to be clear that it's not yours, and you have to cite your source. You can't show another artist's work without crediting them on it. If the difference there is that if you are copying 2D work, what you're doing is you're basically just one to one copying it, right? So like if you take a 2D image of something and then you just draw it again, you just reproduce it, we're not actually getting anything out of that, right? It doesn't show us anything other than your ability to one copy. But if you are building something in 3D based off of a 2D reference, that is showing us, that you are doing some of the work there in that translation. So so 3D work from another artist concept is okay as long as you credit.
Mm-hmm. And another question here from You Are Falling Behind. I love these chat names or these usernames. Chat, great. For an animation degree or career or one of our programs at Gnomon, should the portfolio show strictly animation or a mixture of drawings, animations, modeling, texturing, etc.?
If you have a mixture of animations, drawings, models, textures, etc., then show it. Absolutely. We love to see your range, and we love to see the breadth of your skill set. That said, if you want to be an animator and you don't have that huge list of things, that's okay too. The rule of thumb is that if you happen to have something that is directly aligned with your goals, so like let's say you want to do animation and you have animated, definitely show it, but again, if you don't have it, there are ways to kind of show us other things that would demonstrate the same skill set. This is a really good example of where your admissions advisor can step in and help you go through your work. A lot of students will send us a folder with just a whole big mess of artwork and say, I don't know what you guys want to see. And then we can go through with you and say, okay, how about this, and this? Here's why this maybe you don't need to include. This is great. This should, show this first. This is your strongest. And then maybe over the next week, create one or two of X, Y, and Z. So we can go through and help you pick out which pieces to show us.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's something that admissions advisors do. So I kind of want to highlight one more time. Talking to admissions early on, I saw somebody in the chat saying that they are planning to apply for winter 2021 and asking if they should contact admissions. And the answer to that is yes, you should be talking to admissions right now. The earlier, the better. I used to get questions from sophomores in high school who still had 3 years or 2.5 years before they even applied. And I would still kind of give them some advice and like kind of set them in the right track, and then tell them maybe to check in with me in about, a few months and let's see where you're at and stuff like that. So it's never too early to talk to admissions. It's never too early to reach out. Because we'll work with you in your current situation, whether you're a sophomore in high school, whether you have been out of school for 10 years, whether you already have a bachelor's degree, or you're looking for a career change, later down the line. We work with all sorts of people, based on their current situation. So reaching out, even if you're not planning on applying for another 2 years, it's totally fine. We want to get to know you. We want to talk to you and then figure it out from there.
Yeah, I mean, like we said, our job is to help you get into the school, and the more time we have to work with you, the better off you probably will be. So, if it turns out that you have a long way to go, you have a lot of work to do. If we can catch that a year ahead of you applying, then you have all kinds of time to make changes. But if you don't talk to us until a couple days before you submit, we really can't give you advice because the clock has run out. So talk to us as early as today, regardless of when you're applying or thinking about applying. And we can be the most effective when we have the most time.
Absolutely. And before we continue with the misconceptions here, I did have a question from somebody in chat saying, Hannah said no hard copies. So how would I go about submitting a 3D model in Maya and a character made in ZBrush?
Yeah, when I say no hard copies, I just mean I don't want you to print it out and hand it to me on a piece of paper, you know?
Yeah.
So a 3D model, like how you would show us is you would probably show us a couple of angles. So let's say your model you want to show from straight on, you want to show from the side, you want to show top down. You would just, either ideally render out, but even potentially screen grab some different angles of it and then show each of those to us. So it's helpful to see multiple angles of a 3D model. But yeah, unless you mean like a 3D print, like I know you use ZBrush and hard copy. We don't need to see a 3D printed item. We would just need
Right.
to see the
The
model.
digital model. Yeah, absolutely. I love that you, for your example, you used a cylindrical object.
I know.
This is the front and this is the back.
Well, that's why I
And
changed my hand a lot so that it was a different. Yeah, but you get it.
Yeah, no, I'm messing with you for sure.
We want to see we want as much information about it as you can give us so that we can understand it. 3D is a little bit different because like a sculpture, a traditional sculpture, if you only see it from one angle or you see a photograph of a sculpture, you don't really understand the shape and the volume. So, that's why we just try to ask you for a couple different views.
Yeah, absolutely. That's why I have bed hair in the back of my head, but you can't see it because you're only seeing one angle of me right now.
There you go.
Definitely want to show all angles so that you can get a full picture of what you're trying to show us. And actually, I think that kind of brings up a good thing here, and that's about kind of how to present your work. So I want to bring up a quick slide here in just a second about. I'm going to skip through this. There we go. That's the slide, and hopefully Adam is bringing it up right now. But about kind of how to format your portfolio. Now, this, granted, is definitely a little bit more geared towards if you're submitting, for example, a PDF or just kind of a collection of images in JPEG format and stuff like that. Maybe not so much for a website, but just kind of a general idea here of the things that you should include or the information that you should include when submitting your artwork. And another thing is, if you're seeing here the template, the artwork there's no artwork here, right? It just says your artwork. But let's imagine that the artwork is the black box. It should be big. I remember getting portfolios when I was an advisor, and it would be kind of information, and the artwork would be like a fourth of the page. And you're kind of like, I wish I could see that closer. So make your artwork big, and then include this basic information about your piece, whether it's in a description to the side, whether it's in the actual page.
Yeah. So this example that you have up right now, we call this a slide. 15 to 20 examples of artwork could be, 15 pieces on 15 slides. So let's say you gave us this page, 01.jpg, for example. So, if you were to kind of show us these things together.
Sorry, there's a sound. I don't know if it's coming from somewhere.
Oh, there we go.
Oh, there we go. I don't know if the stream could hear it, but
I don't know if they could hear it.
Yeah.
So this is an example of a slide. The idea of creating a slide that you put your artwork onto is that all of your submission slides here, all of your files are the same size and shape. The thing that's really nice about that is that when we flip through your pieces, kind of like a PowerPoint, like a slideshow, everything feels very cohesive. Your information is in the same place on every frame. So this is just one of a lot of ways to submit work. You could disregard this completely, but the difference that it makes is pretty significant. So if you just sent me 15 randomly sized JPEGs, let's say, that you just type random things into random corners, or maybe not at all, and it just, and everything is just, image 0532, whatever, it's just a big mess of a folder of your work. It's not going to feel very professional.
Mhm.
So, putting together, if you were to build yourself a slide like this, basically recreate this current image in Photoshop and just drop your artwork onto it, save it out as 01, page 02, page 03, then everything is going to feel cohesive and thoughtful and professional. And that's, this is again just one way to do it. But yeah, I mean, so again, formatting, we are flexible, but it just has to feel thoughtful. And it's worth knowing sort of what we're seeing on our side. So our reviews are all conducted on a computer monitor, for example. So you would probably want to show your pages in landscape format, right? Like a wider image rather than a taller one, and just sort of think about things like that. Like Ray said, you probably don't want to show us a thumbnail sized image, because when we blow it up to see it on the computer screen, it's going to look pixelated. We're not going to be able to see what we're looking at. So these are all just considerations to keep in mind. Again,
Mhm.
it just needs to feel thoughtful.
Right. And for everybody here, there is a portfolio guidelines page in our website under the admissions guides. So if one of maybe Sander or Adam could post it in the chat there, if you go to our website, there is a full portfolio guide that you can reference when putting together this portfolio. And again, talking to admissions in general, they will be, before you submit your final portfolio, they will be able to help you curate that presentation and give you advice. So
Mhm.
it's something that I just want to reiterate one more time for everybody, for all the people in the back. Talk to admissions. And when you send a portfolio to admissions, it doesn't mean that you're submitting it, right? When you send your portfolio to admissions, you are submitting it to just get feedback, right? And help prepare for your actual portfolio submission. So I think a lot of people get confused and think that when they send us a portfolio the first time, that's what we're looking at and that's what we are, kind of judging them on for admissibility, and it's not. When you first send us a portfolio, you should be looking to get feedback and help with putting your presentation together, curating your selection of artwork, all that kind of stuff, and we will help you craft the final submission portfolio, and then that's what you would then submit for application.
Right.
Yeah. So cool. Uh, Chat, really great job with all of these questions. You have a lot of questions here, so again, we'll get to them as many of them as we can. Now, we just showed a slide with kind of the information that you need to give us in terms of artwork submitted, but I think that might confuse people who have things like video, or I actually have seen a couple of questions in chat about submitting a game as part of your portfolio. So can we talk about those? How would somebody go about submitting a reel or submitting a game file, or just a video game that they have made?
Sure. And again, if you have it, that's great. If you don't have it, please don't worry about this. But if you would like to show us a video file or something of maybe an example of a game that you've made or anything like that, that's great. You would probably just show us an actual, just a video file. So either just a movie file or something, or you could put it on YouTube or on Vimeo. You can send us a private link with a password if you don't feel comfortable having things up online, or one step further, if you have projects that you're not allowed to show NDA or something, you can give us private links that we won't share. But yeah, so video files, you just kind of, like everything else, just as long as it feels thoughtfully put together, then it's probably fine, and we can be pretty flexible on how you send it. Email attachments, Dropbox, Google Drive, post it online, put it on a
Mhm.
website, whatever. I mean, all of these things, broadly speaking, are okay. That slide example we showed did have a little box in the corner that said like medium or date created or some little info box. That is not absolutely required to be visibly present, but in general, it's a good idea to tell us what it is that we're looking at. So, if you have something on a website, for example, you might have a little text block underneath your image that says, this was created with charcoal pencils, or this was created with, Adobe Premiere, or this was created with whatever, so that we can see what it was. But don't feel like on your video submission, for example, you need to superimpose a caption. If you would like to, great. But all of these things are just ideas. They're just examples of ways to help everything feel unified, help us understand your submission. But the details on how to do it are a little bit broader. You have more options in terms of what works for you.
Absolutely. And actually, just want to give some clarification on the game files. We cannot open executable files. So if you send us a .exe file for a game that you've made, we will not be able to open it. So the best way to submit that is to maybe you do a run through, you do a screen cap, so you capture video of the game and you show us everything that you want to show us, and then you host that as a video. Or a reel. That would be the way to submit a game that you have made.
Correct. Yeah, and that's kind of true for everything. By the way, is please don't send us working files. So don't send us a Photoshop file. Don't send us a Maya file. Don't send us whatever Unreal files. Just save things out as just flattened PDFs or JPEGs, or if it's a motion thing, then yeah, just try to capture just a video file of it.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And so now, are there any other kind of common misconceptions that you want to talk about, Hannah?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest one is the just sort of the whirlwind of information, and kind of the where do I start? I mean, I think a lot of people are intimidated by this idea that you have to put something together to show admissions, and then you have to put together this presentation. And I have artwork, but I don't have a portfolio, and all of these things that really make this process seem bigger and scarier than it is. Remember, all that a portfolio is just a peek at your artwork. So it's not something you have to sweat over as much. It's just a selection of stuff that you've made that you want us to see. So this, even though there are so many if this then that, or maybe you have to do this but not if this, all of these things make this sound really complicated, which is why talk to admissions is your best bet. Because if I get an email where you say, hey, I don't know whether I'm close, I like to draw, here are some of my drawings in an email, what do you think? Then that's really all that the first step needs to be, because then I can say, cool, here's what works, how about you try these things? Thing A, look at this website, here's some great reference for next time you try to draw an animal character. Thing B, here's how this looks on my screen. It maybe doesn't fill the page very well. Why don't you think about trying to do this and this? Thing number 3, okay, you have this many pieces, you only need this many. I think you could remove this and this, whatever. So, we will absolutely hold your hand through this whole process. Again, our role is to help you. So, the biggest misconception is that you have to be ready to talk to admissions, or that you have to know that you're going to apply to talk to admissions. And you really don't. All that you need to talk to admissions is just a loose general interest in potentially attending Gnomon someday, or thinking about, I don't know if I want to be an animator. Can you tell me more about what it's like to be a professional animator? Or, I want to work in VFX, but I have no idea what that looks like. I have never used effects software. My home computer can't handle it. All of these are conversations to have with us. And if you end up not applying, that's okay. You're not out anything for having this conversation. So, I think the biggest misconception is that you need a level of readiness to even communicate with us, and that's the thing that isn't true. So, we are not judging you at any of these stages here. If you send us something and we think it's bad, it's not going to hinder your ability to attend later. We're not going to tell you this is bad, never try again.
Right.
So really this is a light, casual, conversational conversation, and that's the thing that we want people to know first and foremost. The rest of it is just intimidation, right? So like, I don't know if I'm good enough. I don't know if I'm good enough at 3D. I don't
Yeah.
I don't know if I've ever. I don't know if I am gonna like 3D enough. Maybe I don't. I am embarrassed because I have my original character, and that's most of what my art is. And I don't know if you guys accept my style, or uh,
Hmm.
I've only ever taken the art classes in my high school. Nobody's ever taught me. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. These are all very common and really good reasons to send us an email.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's probably really the biggest one is people who don't think they're good enough to reach out, people who are too afraid to talk to us because they think that we are going to tell them that no, they can never come to Gnomon, which is absolutely not true. Not true. I mean, there are ways to start at Gnomon, like we said earlier, without even having a portfolio.
Mm-hmm.
And if you do have a portfolio, um, you should show it to us, regardless of what level you're at. If you have just started drawing, or you started trying doing 3D, or if you've been doing it for a long, long time, um, I think for artists, honestly, it's always hard for us to show our portfolios, right? Like I've experienced it. I get every time I show my portfolio to another professional artist, I get the same feeling, which is apprehension. It's they're judging me. They're gonna think that they're gonna see something in my portfolio that's gonna make them not like me, or they're gonna see something in a portfolio that's going to make them think that I'm just not a good artist and I'm super bad, and they're gonna lose respect for me. All of those things are normal, even for artists. I've been doing art for 8 years now, and I still feel those things. And I graduate. I have an art degree, so that never goes away. But I think it's super important that for anybody that's interested in pursuing an education, and honestly, whether this is at Gnomon or it's anywhere else, don't be afraid to show your portfolio, because we look at it as we're not judging you on it. We're here to help you. We're here to give you advice, to help you get better. And we know that by pursuing that education, that you're going to get better. So we're
Yeah,
not judging you at the level that you're at right now at all.
it's Noman's job to train you. So we don't need you to be an expert when you apply to the school, or else you would not need to go to the school. We expect that you need improvements. I mean, that's why you're pursuing an education.
Yep. And I think a lot of people get intimidated because they see the work that our students are putting out. But I just want to reiterate, those are people that have gone through the program or are about to finish the program. That they've gone through the training. I guarantee you that their
Oh yeah.
portfolios did not look like that when they started. The
Well,
work, yeah.
I mean, so I've been working Gnomon admissions for more than 5 years. So I've seen a lot of people go all the way from having a conversation, I might apply, I don't know if I'm any good, through building a portfolio and getting accepted, through getting their dream job on the other side. I've seen this over and over and over again, and everybody has the same fear on the front end, which is, I don't know that I'm good enough to do this, or I'm not sure that I'm ready. That's I mean, that's the whole Gnomon machine here, is that
Hmm.
we take students that that are really interested in this, that are passionate about art, that love games, or maybe they love movies, or they whatever, and we help those students access information that they don't have access to. We teach you what it's like to be a professional. We teach you how to use all of these tools, and then you go off and you get the job. But I promise you that if you're looking at the work on our website, these students are not making this type of work when they apply. They
Not well.
No, the school's been around for 20 some odd years, and none of the people that have gone through the school have applied with the artwork that you see on our website. So please don't be
Yeah.
afraid of that.
We will be very blunt. If you try to apply with professional level artwork,
You
we
probably
will we
shouldn't
will
go.
ask you, why are you even coming here? Like you're clearly already trained enough to pursue a job in the industry. So if you show us your work and you're too good, we'll tell you that. So, but same kind of the other side of the coin is if you show us work that needs work and that you can definitely use in education, we're here to help you with that. We're here to, again, give you advice, give you resources, and hopefully help you get into the school. So you can pursue that education and then get to make the cool artwork that you see us posting all the time.
Yeah.
That's the end of the road. That's the goal. At the end of the tunnel. So yeah, definitely show us your work. We're here to help. I think that's kind of the biggest thing. So I saw a question come up on chat, which sometimes happen, and I think it's something that we should definitely address. And that is, we had somebody saying that Erkin Bin. I like that I said I wasn't going to try and say any of these usernames at the beginning of this stream, and I just can't help myself. It's just fun to try and pronounce them. It says, I don't get reply from admissions. Does this mean my works are not acceptable?
No, it means please, please, please check your spam folders. We reply to every single email that comes to info@gnomon.edu and admissions, ADMISSIONS at Gnomon. We reply to every single one of those. So if you are not receiving replies, check your spam folder. I promise you that we are sending emails back. This is sort of a known issue generally, especially for our international friends. Sometimes our emails seem to get caught. So yeah, if you don't hear back, try again. If you try again and don't hear back, try with a different email address or something. We are not screening you based on not being good enough in your initial email. I promise you.
Right, and I think that's definitely a big one. Is if you don't hear back from us, it's more than likely going to your spam folder, and even then, if by some weird problem with the internet, our email doesn't reach you back, hit us up again. Send us another email. Like hit up admissions@gnomon.edu again, or info@gnomon.edu. Hit both, and just say, hey, I emailed you guys and I have not heard back. Now, don't do that the day after. Definitely wait a couple of days. Sometimes we don't reply to emails during the weekend. So only during business days. So do wait a few days. But if you don't hear from us, usually in about 2 to 3 days, then do send us a short reply back saying, hey, I've sent you an email. Haven't heard back.
And almost every time we get one of those, hey, nobody answered my last email, we have no other way of contacting you. So if you don't hear back and you want to send a follow-up email, please include a phone number or something so that we can talk to you on another channel and try to troubleshoot it.
Right, exactly. So
can talk on Zoom and on Skype. And we can chat online if email ends up not being the right way to communicate. So, so if there are email problems, we'll find another way.
Absolutely. So definitely hit us up if that is the issue. So, cool. We have a ton of questions from chat, so I think it might be a good time to start answering some of those.
Yeah.
I think we've kind of covered a lot. Actually, one last thing I did want to cover before moving into chat questions is kind of some general portfolio kind of not guidelines, but just portfolio advice into what makes generally a good portfolio. So if you hold on 1 second here, I can.
Are you about to share the?
Yes, I'm about to share what we love to call the Four Cornerstones.
Okay.
Yeah, so the Four Cornerstones to what we consider to be a good portfolio submission. With the first one, and I don't know how if you want to go. I guess I'll mention kind of what it is, and you can elaborate.
Sure.
Maybe. So the first one, creativity, which is use of imagination and original ideas.
Oh, okay. We're one by one. So
yeah.
So this graph that you're looking at, by the way, is also on gnomon.edu under the admissions tab. You'll find this. You'll find the same graphic. So this, by the way, is a nice little cheat sheet. When we are reviewing a student for admission to Gnomon, we are literally scoring you on these 4 things.
Mhm.
So this is your inside glimpse here. This is really what matters to us. Um, so what you will see just right off the bat here is that these four things do not say this person has drawings or this person has 3D or this person is really good at Photoshop. That actually doesn't come up at all when we're accepting a student. This is more broadly what we're looking for. So the four cornerstones being creativity, refinement, relevance, and technical proficiency. This is what we use to get a holistic understanding of your portfolio. So Ray mentioned the first one. We'll talk about that first. So creativity. So what we're trying to gauge with your creativity is we're trying to figure out if you are somebody that has a point of view. Do you have things that you particularly like? Do you have an artistic voice? It does not mean do you have a refined style, by the way, and it doesn't mean have you created an entire world full of characters and stories, but it does mean do you have sort of your own creative edge when you produce artwork? Do you have a point of view? Are your pieces kind of thoughtful and unique?
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. And so next up after that, we have refinement, which is fully realized pieces presented with consideration. And I think we've kind of talked about this throughout the whole stream, and that's kind of just professionalism.
Yeah. So refinement to us also just sort of means are do you have some examples that you have taken all the way to a level of polish? So if your portfolio, for example, is a bunch of just like smudged drawings on a cocktail napkin, then your refinement is going to be pretty low. Not everything you submit needs to be fully rendered and complete and beautiful, but there should be some examples that show us that you have taken some pieces to a high level of finish, that you're carefully presenting them, and that you're being thoughtful when you're showing us your finished work.
Yeah, and I think that actually brings up a good question. How do we feel about works in progress in a portfolio?
Yeah, you are allowed to show works in progress, but I would hope that not all 15 to 20 are works in progress. So as long as it's a balance, you have some stuff that's finished and maybe some stuff you're still working on, that's okay.
Mhm. Absolutely. Next up after that, we have relevance, projects closely connected or appropriate in scope.
Yeah. So relevance just means is there some evidence in your portfolio that Gnomon is the right school for you? So that does not mean that in order to apply to be a game artist, you have to have experience making games, but it does mean that there should be some indication that you have started creating artwork with your goals in mind. That means, if you show us a totally beautiful fine art oil painting portfolio, but you're applying to a school where you want to be an animator, even though it shows us your technical skill set, it maybe does not show us how you have decided to pursue something in entertainment. So, relevance just generally means is there some indication that you have been thoughtful enough with the art that you like to make where you have considered your overall direction. So for let's say for an animator, just to keep you from that example, maybe what you have are some drawings of a character that you've made, or maybe you have tried to do some costume sketches, or maybe you've done a little bit of a little bit of like storytelling, and maybe you have some examples where you've maybe sketched out a character meeting the enemy character, or something that sort of shows us that you are that your head is generally in the space of your goals. So yeah, so relevance does not mean you have to have specific experience, but it does mean that there should be some indication in your submission that pursuing a visual arts degree specific to entertainment and media is going to be appropriate for you.
Absolutely. And then lastly, we have technical proficiency, which is execution of applied knowledge and ability. What does that mean?
So that really just means how successful are your pieces? How far have you come in your own training? How accurate are your figure drawings? How successful are you using the tools that you're using? So this one mostly just speaks to like proficiency. So how successful are your works thus far? Sometimes students again will hit certain quadrants of this harder than others. So let's say you are really technically proficient. You're really good at drawing, but maybe you are lower on creativity. So you're really strong at drawing, but you mostly use maybe existing references, or you're drawing other characters or something. So you're high on technical proficiency, low on creativity. Or maybe the opposite. So let's say like you have a lot of ideas, they're super relevant to your goals. You like to draw, props and weapons, and you want to be a game artist, and you come up with your own ideas, but maybe you're just not very good at it yet. So that would be high points on creativity and relevance, and maybe lower on technical proficiency. So this is all really about a balance. Some of these things you're going to be stronger at than others, but the big takeaway with these quadrants is that a lot of stuff fits in here. So you could show us a traditional sculpture, as long as it is creative, more or less fully realized, finished, it's relevant to your goals, and you have applied your skill set to it. Great. You can ask yourself these questions with your artwork. So is this piece from my sketchbook, is it creative? Is it relevant? Does it show my skill set? So that's what we're reading when we're reading a portfolio. So again, there's no part of this in our review that says specifically, is this person good at 3D? Doesn't come up. Does this person draw traditionally or digitally? Doesn't come up. So what we're reviewing you for is broad stroke. Is this individual creative? Does this individual, is there evidence that this individual wants to do the thing that they're telling us they want to do? Does this person seem to finish artwork, or is this just one big sketchbook, entirely? And is this person somebody that has been practicing, or is this somebody that is absolutely brand new? So those are the things that we're looking at when we're reviewing a student for admission. And if this is also sort of what our portfolio review is for, is to tell you early on, okay, right now your artwork is very creative, but maybe less relevant. So here are some ways to bridge, to apply your creativity to something related to your goals. So, but it's always going to be a balance. Some students are really good at some of these things and have, and are less good at others. So,
Right. And I think, just this, this kind of all ties back to our first point, which is talk to admissions, because they will be able to tell you where you're at with all of these, right?
right.
Like they'll be able to look at your work and look at the portfolio you're trying to put together, and be able to kind of give you an idea of where you stand in terms of kind of hitting all these four cornerstones.
Yeah.
So actually, on chat right now, I'm seeing it. Sander is posting, or Gnomon Admissions is posting the contact card. So if you fill out that contact card, you guys, we will get in contact with you. Someone will follow up to answer your individual questions. So if we don't get to your questions here on stream today, we will be following up with you. So you can fill out that contact card again. And if you RSVP'd, we will follow up as well, because we already have your information. So, all right, so let's go ahead and get to some of these lots and lots of questions that we've gotten through chat. And I know that some of them have been answered already by Sander, but let's see what we got here. For the bachelor's degree program, or really any program in general, this is more of just an admissions question.
Mm-hmm.
Are the SATs or ACTs required?
Nope.
That's right. We do not require SAT or ACTs.
There's a pretty short answer, but no, we don't.
We don't.
The only things that are required for applying to the bachelor's degree or the 2-year program is the application itself, which is a form on our website that you fill out. The application is going to ask you some questions like, what are your goals? What is your creative background? Things like that. We have a portfolio requirement, obviously, kind of what this whole thing's about. And we ask you for your high school transcripts. Or if you already have a bachelor's degree from another school, you could show that instead. But that's really it. We do not require letters of recommendation. We do not require ACT, SAT, test scores, anything otherwise.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and bring up that admissions process slide again,
Mhm.
and just kind of go over this in a little more detail. We mentioned it earlier, but we didn't really kind of break it down. So, again, number one, we've said it multiple times, speak to an admissions advisor. Number two here, we have fill out and submit an online application and non-refundable $25 application fee. But that should, again, be once you've talked to your advisor, once you've had those conversations about your work and stuff like that and kind of your educational path, then the advisor will typically be like, all right, cool, then you go ahead and submit that application. So definitely start with step one. Then step two is to submit that online application. Step three would then be to submit that portfolio that you have been curating along with your admissions advisor,
Mhm.
ideally for a few months before even applying. Then after that, we have submit, like you were saying, the proof of high school completion or equivalent. So that's going to be high school transcript showing graduation. That's going to be GED. If you are an international student, it's slightly different. Hannah, do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, international students have a couple of additional documents that are required. We do require language test scores, so either TOEFL or IELTS. We also, there's a couple other little pieces of this. We need a copy of your passport. There's a couple other documents. So if you are on gnomon.edu, under the admissions tab at the top of the page, there is an international student guide that will walk you through everything that is required of you as an international student. Admissions can also talk to you about sort of what are those required documents and how to turn them all in. Some of you also, we've been getting a lot of questions about how do I request high school transcripts. Talk to us and we can help you figure it out with your school. Since everybody is kind of online and schools are not in session, the process is a little different, but we can walk you through it.
Yep. And then lastly is to schedule an admissions interview. And this is different than just speaking to an advisor. After you've submitted all of your documents and your portfolio, your application, and kind of your application is what we consider to be almost complete, then the last step is to have more of a formal interview with admissions. And Hannah, do you want to kind of talk about what that interview entails?
Yeah. So this is a minimally scary interview, but we do have a phone call once we've received all of your other work, once we have your transcripts, once we have your application, and when we have your portfolio. The purpose of the call is to go through your submission together and make sure that there are no outstanding questions. So let's say your portfolio has something where you were not very clear about the fact that it was a group project, or maybe you wrote something in your application that we want to hear more about. That's really what the interview is for, is to sort of go through what you've turned in and also discuss some of the expectations of the program you're applying to. So so we'll kind of go through things like Gnomon's timeline, what your classes would look like, and just make sure that we're all on the same page. That's the last step of the application.
Yeah. And here from chat, we have Akunado asking if you're submitting 3D work, is it okay to use other people's assets and give them credit? For example, he is a specialist in 3D animation. Can he animate on other people's rigs?
Yes, but please cite your sources. So if you want to show us maybe an animated clip, but you are using a provided rigged model, you would just make sure that you tell us, responsible for animation, model and rig provided, or credited to specific artist. So yeah, that's okay. The make or break on this is just how clear you are about it. So if you are clear, this is what I did and this is what I did not do, then it's usually okay.
Mm-hmm. And so another question we have here from Atik Jane 11 is, can I include motion graphics in my portfolio?
Sure. So The question, can I include blank in my portfolio? The answer is almost always yes. But the bigger question is whether or not you should include it in your portfolio, not whether or not you can. We'll accept almost anything, you know? So, I mean, you could show us drawings, paintings, motion graphics, graphic design work,
Mhm.
paintings, illustrations, 3D, animation. I mean, we'll accept almost anything, but whether it's worth including is the thing that kind of depends. So, if what you're showing us with your motion graphics work is creative, refined, technically proficient and relevant to your goals, like our quadrants there, then yes, submit it. If you feel that it maybe is not very creative, not relevant to your goals, not the best example of your work, and maybe you only have kind of an old capture that doesn't look very good, then no. So
Mhm.
can you? Yes. Should you? It depends.
Right. And here we have a recommended discipline slide that just kind of showcases some of the things that we tend to look at as more often than not. Now, I want to preface this with saying that this is not all of the things that we look at. So if you have things that you think are relevant and kind of meet those cornerstones that we were just talking about, then definitely show it to an admissions advisor, and then we can help you determine if they're kind of relevant for submission. But here are just some of the recommended disciplines that we typically see in admissions portfolios that are submitted to Gnomon. So we have things like concept design, we have things like sculpture, 3D art, animation, graphic design, drawing and rendering, figurative pieces, traditional and digital painting, texture and lighting studies, motion graphics, programming, and scripting. So you can see that there's quite a range right there. But again, there's also more. So if you don't see it here, but you think it's relevant, do show us and we'll help you determine that.
Yeah. And please don't feel like you need to do all of these things.
That's another thing. Yeah, absolutely.
Some examples of stuff that you could potentially include. But let's say you're an artist and all that you do is, draw on Procreate and draw with pencil, and that's all you got. Please don't feel like you need to go learn how to do motion graphics in order to apply.
Mhm.
So, a portfolio is just showing us what you do, not forcing you to do something new. This is not an assignment. This is just a window into your own creativity.
Absolutely. And so yeah, definitely. Yeah, well said. What I don't know what I was going to add at the end of that, but all right. So let's go back here to chat questions. Bromide Bro, nice name, bro, is asking if matte painting is considered 3D, and if so, to what extent is it covered at Gnomon?
Okay, that's a good question. We do teach matte painting. It kind of fits into our programs in various ways. So, um, the way that we teach software is all kind of generally aligned with what it is Gnomon is training for. So you will see some matte painting techniques in our foundation Photoshop classes, and then you'll see them sort of all the way up through into your like compositing and such. It'll go a little bit into sort of using those skills, using those tools. So, yeah, that's a good example of one technique that kind of fits into this concept of being a generalist school. Gnomons programs cover a very wide gamut of different skills and applications. So, matte painting is one of the examples that is just sort of a piece of the grand Gnomon puzzle. If you were looking to take a single class relevant to matte painting, admissions can make recommendations for you too.
I just saw a comment on chat that just came in, and it says, "I wish I could just grab one of you guys and get coffee and talk about stuff. I feel stuck in my journey and I need an art therapist."
We
Uh,
got coffee right now. We're
yeah,
here.
I finished mine. Mine was a nice coffee. I'm done. But yeah, we're here. No, and I think again we're available. So if you do want to talk to us, feel free to get in contact with us. We're happy to chat about where you're at. If you are going through art block, we're not art therapists, but we will kind of give you some resources that can help you start producing work.
Yeah.
So definitely hit us up. It doesn't hurt. Again, we're here for that. So
Yeah, me and the rest of my team. I mean, there's several admissions advisors at Gnomon, but we are all online weekdays, and we can chat with you. We can chat with you like this on a video chat. If you're not comfortable with that, we can just type chat with you. Find a forum somewhere that you're comfortable with. We can send emails back and forth. I mean, but
Yeah,
we're
there's
super available, and this kind of conversation is one that we can have one on one.
all day, every day.
Yeah.
Pretty much. So let's see here. Going back to the questions. Chopstick Fairy asked, do you guys take video work, 2D, 3D animation, MP4 file? We answered that earlier. The best way to get us video work is to host it somewhere. You can send us the video file if you'd like through Google Drive or Dropbox or something like that. But we do like when you just go ahead and host it over in Vimeo or host it in YouTube, something like that, where it's just a link and it's easier for us to access. Let's see. There's a lot of questions, chat. Again, I'm really proud of you guys. This is awesome. Any recommendations? And this is Loki Uziligs. There's any recommendations for creature character design and what to focus on? Creature character design. Totally depends on you, right? Totally depends on what you want to do and what you like. And you like creatures or characters better. You like both. If so, do both. I think a big thing if you are doing creatures and characters is to always focus on anatomy, right? Even when it's stylized work. That would be my biggest recommendation. As someone who does character and creature work myself, the biggest thing there is to make sure that you have those fundamentals down. And again, admissions can give you some resources to polish your anatomy if it needs some work and stuff like that. But yeah, we'd love to see creature and character design work.
Yeah, the best place to start is just to kind of start. If you're interested in doing like creature modeling, creature animation, something, and you've got a pen and a pencil, pen and paper, whatever, just start sketching out some ideas. If you need a place to start, look at animal reference. If you're doing creatures, like maybe look at an octopus and think about how to make it more sci-fi, or look at your dog and try to make it prehistoric. I don't know. There's a lot of ways to sort of draw inspiration from what's around you and try to apply creativity to it. But those are both maybe not great ideas, but they are good examples of things that kind of check off the boxes for us. Creative, yeah. An application of your skill set, relevant to your goals, so this is the kind of thing you can email us about, and we can try to give you some online resources, just places to start. But
yeah, I don't know what you're talking about. I think sci-fi octopus is a fantastic idea. Guns,
go any direction you want. Maybe. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe you want to do a Victorian era buffalo.
Right. Maybe the octopus is a replicant. All right. So we have another question here. And actually, I'm going to ask this one because I think it ties into another thing regarding admissions process is, do you look at attendance records and does that affect the chance of getting in? So I think that ties more into your GPA. So Hannah, does no one have a minimum GPA requirement? How do we handle that in the admissions process?
We do not have a minimum GPA, but we do look at your GPA. So, the reality is that Gnomon is school. And if you don't go to school, you're not going to learn from school. So we really are going to need you to be committed to your classes. We need you to do your homework. We need you to show up. We can't train you if we don't have the opportunity to train you. So while we don't have a minimum GPA requirement, we are looking at your transcripts for just some evidence that you are going to be serious about this. Like going to school for game design sounds super fun and absolutely is fun, but there's still work here, and you're gonna have to put in some time and do the work. So attendance specifically, we'll see it. It really does just reflect in your grades. That said, we do know that students are going to have strengths and weaknesses. So if you have always been really bad at Latin and you are, also really bad at US history and you have a couple of weak subjects on your transcript, that's not the end of the world. It really isn't. But if you never go to class and never do your homework and have consistently recently flunked out of all of your classes, that will probably be a problem. So
Yeah, and for this specific case, they're saying that they had to miss a lot of classes due to medical issues. And what I want to point out here is that it is on a case by case basis. So you
yeah,
definitely want to talk to your advisor. We don't look at everybody the same, right? We look at everybody as an individual person. So if there are reasons for for why maybe you have a lot of your attendance is not great, or you maybe failed a few classes, do talk to us, because we do give you the opportunity to explain, and we do give you the opportunity to kind of basically tell us what happened, and kind of give us your part of the story. So
yeah. There's a big difference between having a bad subject or maybe having a bad year, or something. And, there's a big difference between that and having like maybe 4 years of high school. You graduated a year ago and you never went, I mean, so yes, we read your transcript. And the reason why we have that interview is so that we can talk about things like this, so you can say, hey, I just want to point out, I had a really bad semester because I ended up dropping out. I got sick, and then it was too late, and I got Fs in these classes. Or, hey, I try really hard in this, but here's why this is not a good subject for me. And these things, we take them into consideration. So, this comes up. You have a chance to sort of talk to us about your situation. But as a rule, moving forward, care about your classwork. If you are currently attending high school, or if you are currently attending classes somewhere else and you're wondering right now whether Gnomon is going to look at your grades, we are. So just, do your best.
yeah, a good piece of advice in general. Just do your best.
Just do your best.
Here's a good one that applies to portfolios specifically.
Mm.
Warlock Solaris is good class. Is saying, I'm beginning exploration in 3D and Blender, and therefore following a lot of tutorials to make things. I am trying to put my own twist on the material, but should I still reference that the work was completed through watching a tutorial? That's a really good question. I can't tell you how many times I've seen the donut from Blender, from the beginning Blender tutorial. And I think I can take this one, Hannah, or I don't know if you want to chime in, but I think that the thing there is, yes, this is what you're saying, is adding your own twist, right? If you follow a tutorial step by step and you achieve the result that the tutorial is kind of trying to get you to achieve, cool. I would not recommend that, putting that in a portfolio. I recommend, you've achieved that, now go back to step one and try to make something that is your own, still referencing the tutorial, for kind of the steps to achieve it. But make something that is your own. We typically do not like to see kind of tutorial work in a portfolio specifically. We want to see your own take,
Right.
or show us what you've learned from doing that tutorial by doing something new.
Yeah. So this is a good example of exploring 3D, but maybe not showing 3D in your portfolio. So let's say you do that donut coffee blender tutorial, which we're joking about, but truly we have seen like hundreds of times.
Yeah.
I would say, does that mean it's not worth doing that tutorial? No, go
No.
do it, but maybe don't include it. So this is a way to explore 3D, but not feel the need to present it in your submitted portfolio. Yeah, tutorials are great just because it's good to get off the ground, but your best bet is like, let's to pretend like you're taking it as a class. After you've had your in-class assignment, which is this donut, then give yourself the homework of making your own project with your new skill set, right? So you learned how to use the tools, you know how to make that shape, or you know how to drop a texture on something. Now try to make something of your own, and that is something that you would show us.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that this also brings a good point where, and I suffered from this myself when I was a young artist. I'm still young, but when I was kind of getting into it, I thought that everything that I did had to be portfolio ready or portfolio material. I thought that every drawing, every illustration, when I got into 3D, that every piece that I did I was spending my time creating things that were going to go into a portfolio. And I would like to discourage everybody on chat if you're kind of starting your artistic journey from thinking that way. Studying, doing studies of like life drawing studies, doing still lives, doing tutorials, following along, copying artists. Those are all really, really valuable things that are going to help you improve a ton, right? You may not include those in a portfolio necessarily, and that should not be the goal. The goal should be to just simply improve so that then when you do portfolio material, right, all those skills that you've learned, all that knowledge that you've attained from doing studies shows in the portfolio work that you are doing. So I think study time is incredibly valuable and should never be overlooked as an artist. So
It's true. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, again, your portfolio is not an assignment. You don't have to go and go off and then go, okay, I'm going to make a portfolio piece today. What you're going to do is you're going to go off and you're going to say, I'm going to make a piece of art today. I'm going to make something that I think is cool. I'm going to explore one of my ideas. And then, all that a portfolio is just showing us some stuff that you made. So you should approach your art as an artist, right? You should be making things for your own reasons, for your own creativity, your own exploration, and then the portfolio part of this is just showing us. It's just the afterthought, but you do not need to approach making art as a what does Gnomon want me to make today, because it's
mhm.
really not about that.
Exactly. All right, you guys. So we have reached. It's 11:32 now. We're 2 minutes kind of over the time that we said we're going to be here today. So I just want to say a few more words to everybody here today. Thank you so much for joining. Thank you so much for coming to our stream today. Chat, you're awesome. I know that we were not able to get to all the questions that you had, but this is a good time for me to say reach out to admissions. Fill out the contact card that's being posted on chat so that you can get all those individual questions answered, right? All those are very valid. We just didn't have time to get through all of them today. There's so many. So talking to an admissions advisor is going to be your best bet at not only putting your portfolio together, but also improving and getting ready for an education at Gnomon. And again, it's something that we do completely free, of course. It is what we're here for. And so do reach out to us. Do fill out that contact card. If you fill out the contact card on chat, also we will send you a link once this stream is uploaded, so that you can rewatch it and listen to it. So if you missed any part of it or you just want to rewatch it at a later time, do fill out the contact card, and that way we can send you a link once we repost it online, once we
Mm-hmm.
upload it. So with that said, Hannah, is there anything else you wanted to add before we?
No, just that admissions is standing by. So I am going to be online for the next 7 hours today. So if you would like to ask a couple questions immediately, you wanna send us an email this afternoon. Either myself or a couple of the other people in admissions will be happy to get back to you. We can set up a phone call that could happen as early as today. We can set up a Skype call a week from now. We can have an email exchange. Maybe you just have one quick question, whatever. I mean, the whole point of all of this is that we are super available, and our entire job is to help you get into the school. So, use us. We are a really good free resource, and we are all, hopefully minimally scary. We're just other artists here that are just trying to, point you in the right direction.
Exactly. And again, guys, the first step to do this is just fill out the contact card that's being posted on chat. Nightbot should be posting it. So yeah, guys, thank you so much. We hope you got some information out of this stream today. We hope you enjoyed our conversation. We will be doing some more of these streams. So I do encourage everybody to subscribe here to the Twitch channel and also follow us on social media. We are working on some awesome content for the next few weeks. Following up, we do have an info session coming up where we will go through all of our programs, all of our offerings, admissions information, all that kind of stuff. And that is going to be happening next week. That's going to be with guest artist Jared Krzyzewski. So tune in for that. The information is online. I am blanking right now on the specific date for the stream. Let me find it real quick here for everybody. But again, we will be covering kind of all of the information about our programs and our curriculum, all that kind of stuff. So I actually, it's not.
Yeah, let's see here. The next one coming up is Friday, June 19th at 2 p.m.
There we go. Friday, June 19th at 2 p.m. We will be having character and creature concept artist Jared Krzyzewski here joining us. We were going to have him last info session, but unfortunately his internet connection was not good. All of that is hopefully fixed, and so he will be coming back, and then we'll be diving into an info session. So join us for that. And then we also have a weekly art jam happening on Wednesdays at 9 a.m. with Josh Herman, who is our Chief Creative Officer, and is someone who's worked on Marvel movies, he's worked for Naughty Dog and Cloud Imperium Games, and he does a stream every Wednesday. So we'd love to see you there. Thank you, guys. Thank you, everybody. Have a great rest of your day. We'll see you soon.